Deputy Collins.
Thank you, Concordia. Taoiseach, in the past 2 years, I've heard you visited West Cork twice. Last year, going as far west as my own parish in Goleen, passing my own door on the way to Scull, and last week into Bandon and Cork-Macsherry. And in difference to Minister Stephen Donnelly, who's there next to you, his recent visit, my biggest regret is that you did not contact me about these visits, as I would have welcomed you to West Cork and show you positive moves communities are making. But I also would have asked you to meet communities that are struggling. When in Goleen last year, you posed for photos outside the most southwesterly post office in Ireland that had closed its doors just 3 weeks previous to your visit and will never reopen again, as it was not viable to open, many interested people told me. You went on to Scull that morning and posed for photos outside the newly proposed marina. That would have been a game changer for the Midland Peninsula, and where the communities were a number of years ago taken up by a Fine Gael minister and posed for photos in his office, with senior ministers congratulating them on getting the money, only for the same massive funds to be redirected to another minister's constituency who was politically struggling at the time. Taoiseach, did you meet with the Cork County Council when in West Cork last week to discuss the AERO report, an independent report commissioned by the Cork County Council 3 years ago, showing they are the lowest council receiving funding in the country for decades for our roads, LIS projects, urban village renewal, as well as rural regeneration funds and many more? Did you meet on your visit the thousands of frustrated car, lorry, tractor, all vehicle users who drive in the most appalling roads daily in West Cork? Taoiseach, these people get up early in the morning in West Cork. They pay their car tax, their insurance, their own workers' tax, all in all, with an expectation of having a half-decent road. Roads like the Bog Road in Scull falling into the neighbour's field. Roads like the roundabout in Dunstores, if your car goes into a hole, you'll have to be pulled out of it. The Skibbereen to Lepp Road, where the front and back wheels, if they hit the holes, will burst the tyre or damage a rim. When in West Cork, on your 2 trips, did you visit the unfinished Southern Relief Road in Bandon, now decades behind completion? Did you look at the much-needed Northern Relief Road in Bandon? Did you call into the people of Inishannon and apologise to them for not working with me on their relief road, which others have been begging you in this stall? Did you call to the people of Bantry and apologise to the people of Bantry and Bear for not pushing for the relief road for Bantry? These projects, Taoiseach, lie decades behind. No movement but promises from Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil politicians at each election, and are left with not a sod turned or a cent given. Taoiseach, the people of West Cork are sick of being treated like second-class citizens when it comes to funds from the national purse. West Cork is sick of getting crumbs off the rich man's table while you lay pristine tar on top of pristine tar in and around our capital. Taoiseach, when in West Cork, did you meet the council or NTA to look at simple passing bays that could be created between Bandon and Clonakilty, Clonakilty to Skibbereen, and the N71, or Bandon to Ballyneen, R586, thus preventing drivers being held behind lorries or tractors for a half hour some days? Taoiseach, can you tell me, after 2 visits to West Cork, have you addressed the AERO report carried out by the Cork County Council, or have you progressed any of the bypasses I have mentioned? And if so, please tell me the progress now. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Collins. Hope you brought your diary, Taoiseach.
my diary is published. Well, Deputy, first of all, it was a real pleasure to have a chance to visit West Cork again. It is surely one of the nicest and one of the most beautiful parts of the country, and was really glad to meet people and to talk to people in different parts of it on this occasion. Had a chance to visit Bandon and Clonakilty and Timoleague and also Cork-Macsherry. And I didn't meet the people you mentioned, but I did meet a number of councillors who did impress on me the need to find more funding for road maintenance and road restoration. And in Bandon, in Senator Tim Lombard's office, I met with business groups from the town who raised specifically the issue of the relief road. So these are issues that are on my agenda. In relation to road maintenance and restoration, this isn't a problem unique to Cork or West Cork. It's coming up all over the country, that the budgets that have been allocated to local authorities to repair and restore roads aren't going as far as they went in previous years because of inflation. And we acknowledge that, and in recognition of that, Minister Ryan allocated an additional €22 million for local and regional road maintenance only in the past week or so. And we're examining whether it's possible to find more money within the transport budget to do that. Don't know if that's possible yet, but that's something that we're considering. And certainly Minister Humphreys is working on finding additional funding for local improvement schemes, very important for rural laneways in particular. And the budget for that has increased considerably under Minister Humphreys in recent years. On the Bandon Relief Road project, again, is something that that I was briefed on when I met the business leaders in Bandon, and I have agreed to follow up on it. We have a budget every year, about €250 million for new roads. You'll be familiar with Dunkettle, almost complete, huge investment there, which will benefit people from Cork City and West Cork as well. But it's never the case that there's enough funding to advance every project that we'd like to advance. But there are projects that we will be able to advance in the future.
Thank you, Kilcorn, and thank you, Taoiseach, for your reply. And I don't think you seem to grasp the crisis that I am talking about. As I said earlier, you're always welcome to West Cork anytime, as it's one of the most stunning parts of our country. But it's not Jurassic Park, Taoiseach, where you drive in and drive out waving and smiling. We live there. We live with the unfinished bypasses. We live with them not being done at all. We live with no simple passing bays being built on the N71 or the R586. It's not going on for 2 or 3 years. It's going on for decades. And you keep mentioning about the one bypass. It's 2 bypasses for Bandon. So I'm shocked that your Senator Tim Lumber didn't sit you down with the Cork County Council officials and not arrange a meeting to talk about the lack of funding in the Aero report. So, Taoiseach, I ask you one more time, will you, Taoiseach, take me up on my offer now, and I will invite you to West Cork to discuss the roads crisis funding for bypasses and passing bays immediately, so that we can at least, in some way, shape or form, the people from Goleen, Balladahub, Skull, Skibbereen, all the way into Clonakilty to Bandon, down into Kinsale, can have the same type of road structure that most people have throughout the country. We don't have it. We're behind decades with bypasses in Bantry, Southern Relief Road, Northern Relief Road, Bandon, Inishannon. Taoiseach, it's in your watch, and I'm asking you here today, is there going to be moves in any one of those bypasses?
Taoiseach to conclude.
Thanks, Deputy. I'll be happy to come back to you in detail on the specific projects that you raise. And what I do know from my visit to West Cork in the last couple of days is there has been huge investment in the area. You know yourself in the town of Bandon the amount of work that's been put in to install flood relief. We all remember the floods in Bandon. It's under the last government and this one that millions of euros have been invested in flood protection works. And in the town of Bandon, I saw the work being done to improve and upgrade the main street. Again, I think about €30 million being put into that town by this government in recent years, which I know you neglected to welcome, but I'm sure you do welcome. And heard some very encouraging news from the councillors I met there in relation to the uptake of the derelict grant. I think about 500 applications in County Cork alone for people to take on, refurbish and renovate derelict buildings and bring them back into use. I think that's really encouraging because we want to bring old buildings back into use. And there's been huge investment under the LEADER programme, under the Town and Village scheme, and of course the National Broadband Plan. Glad to see that that's working too. But I absolutely acknowledge that more investment is needed in West Cork and around the country in coming years. But that investment will only be possible if we can pay for it, and will only be able to pay for it if we continue to have a government that is made up of parties that supported the economic policies introduced in this country for the past 10 or 12 years.
Thank you very much, Taoiseach.